So you have these personality types that like, but Joseph, the body naturally produces cholesterol. That might be that might actually be very disrespectful, because the body does naturally produce cholesterol in a lot of ways. But I don't want this to be the video that you're not fundamentally understanding the attribute. Fat is one of the most disrespected nutrients. It's one of the most disrespected nutrients in my personal opinion. When you think about collectively some of these macros, some of these micronutrients, and especially when you're thinking about testosterone optimization, we have to look at fat more intuitively, with more nuance, certainly more detail in relation to the mechanisms in which it actually upregulates testosterone, and actually does this through a mechanism called steroidogenesis. Steroidogenesis, right? So the steroidal aspect of our physiology. So let's go through some science bits and pieces first. The reasoning is important for you to be able to execute with more diligence on some of the factors I'm going to share with you in this particular video. So, stimulation of GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. So the hypothalamus, little region in your brain, releases this GnRH, and the GnRH stimulates the pituitary gland, another gland in the brain, to release two hormones, LH and FSH. Now we're going to focus a little bit more on luteinizing hormone here. This is very, very, in much of the supplements that I've been discussing and I've been writing about in my book, it's all about the activation of LH. So the stimulation of the Leydig cells, which are cells actually in your testicles, bind. So LH binds to these receptors on the Leydig cells and then stimulates them to produce testosterone. Some people would reference cholesterol conversion here. So this idea that the building blocks of testosterone are cholesterol. If you don't have any cholesterol in your body, then how are you going to be able to facilitate the building of the building that is free-base testosterone, and then moving that into the AR, and the AR moving it into the cell, and the cell turning on the gene, and then the gene turning on muscle growth, facial hair growth, masculine characteristics, things like that. So testosterone production begins with cholesterol, a type of lipid. Leydig cells possess the necessary enzymes to convert this cholesterol into testosterone through a series of biochemical reactions, also known as steroidogenesis. I won't go through this particular point again, because there's no disadvantage to including more fat in your diet. In fact, some of the studies that I've referenced here, so this particular study analyzed low-fat diets and testosterone in men. So a systematic review of individuals who are on low-fat diets compared to high-fat diets. And I'm not going to go through the whole study here. It's by another Joseph Whitaker, in case you want to look at this yourselves. But the results of the study were that there was significant decreases in sex hormones on low-fat versus high-fat. And the conclusion of the study highlighted that low-fat diets appear to decrease testosterone levels in men. But further randomized controlled trials are needed to confirm this effect. Men with European ancestry might experience a greater decrease in testosterone in response to low-fat diets. And I think what's really interesting is that there's this idea that the point in history where our evolution was at its highest was when we were eating a Mediterranean diet. So places near the coast, because there's more fat in seafood. Interesting concept. I wonder if you heard of that concept before. Speaking of another interesting concept and a piece of fat that you should be including in your diet with dinner, I've got our avocado here, is this an additional study by Wilson, where he divided two groups. So here's group one on the left-hand side. The group was 20% protein, 55% carb, and 25% fat. Comparatively to group two, which is more kind of keto-based, 20% protein, 5% carb, 75% fat. The conclusion of the study. So both groups participated, I'll just go through the method first. 10 weeks of resistance training, so lifting weights, doing the presses, doing the rows, doing the deadlifts. What's your favorite What's your favorite pulling exercise? Might be a row for me. Might be a barbell row. Although both groups had similar increases in muscle thickness, lean body mass, and strength measures, 1 rep max on squat, bench press, only the keto group experienced a significant increase in total testosterone concentrations. So again, coming back to this typical reaction that I hear in relation to upregulating fat in the diet relatively to increasing testosterone levels is, well, Joseph, actually doesn't matter because the body synthesizes cholesterol by itself. It's not true. It's not true. It's not entirely true. It's not as simple as that. It's been suggested that increases in testosterone concentrations resulting from a keto diet are related to the high dietary intake of what? Cholesterol. Now, what does this mean for you guys? I've kind of laid and colored my opinion throughout this. I've said it many times before that I believe fat is one of the most disrespected nutrients that's what people's opinions are. I fundamentally believe that you can get away with reducing your carbohydrate intake and supplementing that with more fat in your diet. Avocados would be a great one. We've got red fatty cuts of meat here. We've got salmon. We've got walnuts. Other personal favorites are anchovies. What I drink in the morning to keep my fast going for a little bit longer is C8 and C10 MCT oil, which is 100% organic coconut oil. And speaking of how you're cooking your foods, this is a wonderful opportunity to get more fat in your meal. So cook with tallow, right? One of the things I'm doing at the moment, which I kind of believe I wasn't doing before, is buy high fat ground beef, right? So get like 20%, tastes better as well. Very, very high in calories, and it's cheap, so cheap. High fat ground beef, right? I have an air fryer, so I use my air fryer to cook it. I know there's some contrary ideas about air frying, but once I'm done, all the fat goes to the bottom of the grill. And what I do is I cook a couple, so I round them up into little patties. So I make my own really high fat ground beef patties. Then what I do is after the fat has built up at the bottom, I get a cheese strainer, which is just a piece of cloth with threads that are very close together that will stop any of the kind of yucky bits that come underneath the bottom of the air fryer going through. So I strain it, and then you've got beef fat, you've got tallow to cook, and then I use the tallow to cook I'll cook eggs in there sometimes. I'll cook potatoes are great actually. Just get Maurice potatoes, white potatoes, and take the skin. There's good fiber in the skins, but I take the skin off. I boil them for a little bit, fluff them up, and while they're boiling, I've got the oven going and the fat bubbling up, and then I put the potatoes in the tallow, and it tastes beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So tallow, ghee is another very a lot of, I think, Western people are afraid to use ghee. I don't really understand it. Maybe it's because they're afraid of going in the world food aisles and they don't really understand it. Ghee is great. Next time you're shopping, get yourself a big can of ghee. You can also do butter, of course, raw butter, grass-fed butter, and buy it in the foil, not in the plastic container, because it's always got rapeseed oil, which is inflammatory. Get yourself a little butter dish, tremendous. Other sources of fat, we talk about the avocado. I have to talk about the avocado, of course, but there is always an opportunity, gentlemen, to increase your fat intake in your diet. It will keep you fuller for longer. It will stop you snacking as well, and you'll feel more satiated. Your brain will work better, and your testosterone will go up. These aren't theories, they're facts. Speak soon.